Best part of the job. Right up there, the mic's right on there, and just switch it on, you're good to go. Thanks, John.
How are you guys? Having a good show so far? You're the smart ones. You got in before the crowds. I just came from Rhode Island, and it was like 17,000 person venue, and at 20,000, they called the fire marshals. So some of the guests, if we left, we couldn't get back in. So what's up? What do you want to know that I can't tell you?
Yes. You run as fast as your character.
Can I? No, God, particularly not now. That was 24 years ago. But I can sit there behind the glass in prison and talk on the phone. Yes.
How were you approached for to do the part for Barry's father, especially, and I appreciate the tie, especially from the previous Flash.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it was, of course, I'm gonna move over here. I heard that they were going to be doing it, and people were saying, "Are you going to be part of it? Are you going to be part of it?" I said, "Well, they could go one of two ways. They could decide to make an entirely clean break because." You know, I mean, you guys pay very close attention, and they might not have wanted my presence there, you know, on Grant's back, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I said, they may, if they offer me a role and it's something interesting and I can contribute in a meaningful way, I would be open to it. And then people were saying, "Oh, you got to play Jay Garrick. You got to play Jay Garrick." And I thought, well, yeah, that's sort of the obvious choice. And then I heard what Jeff Johns had done to the Allen family, you know. Because, you know, Emmett Walsh played my dad. Priscilla Pointer played my mom. I can't imagine, wait, Emmett Walsh is in prison for killing Priscilla Pointer in front of a 10-year-old me? That kind of blew my mind. So when I heard that, I thought, if they approach me, that's the role I would want. And it was about a week and a half later that they called and asked to see recent film. And I had just done 2 independent films. One was Sensory Perception with John Savage, Corbin Burnson, Mr. Amanda Pays, as we know. And I had done The Sector with Richard Tyson and Lance Henriksen. And so we sent film out to the West Coast, because I'm back on the East Coast now. And the next day they called and they offered Henry Allen. So I'm like, I was way psyched. You know, I had a big compliment. I don't know if she's in here, but there was someone that I spoke to. Was it you? Someone apologized for not having seen the original Flash. But she went on to say, "I love what you're doing in the current Flash." And I said, "Why would you apologize?" I said, "You know, what you're basically telling me is you like what I'm doing today." I tell people, even if I had never played Barry Allen, I would want to play Henry Allen, because that's the way they're writing it. Of course, Greg Berlanti was head writer of Dawson's Creek after Kevin Williamson left, so I know Greg very well for years. And Andrew Kreisberg, another executive producer, he came up to me when I met him on the set first time. And he said, "Actually, we've already met." I said, "We had?" Andrew's this tall. And he said, "Yeah, I was actually an assistant on the backline at Warner Brothers 24 years ago when you were shooting The Flash." He said, "I totally fanboyed out on you." You know, the thing about that is our producers are all big Flash fans. They all watched the first effort very carefully. They watched what we did right, what we did wrong. They watched how badly it was handled by the network. And from what I can tell, they've learned from all of our mistakes. But I kind of got off the subject there. I think your original question was like, what color are your eyes? Anything? Yes?
What happened to your original suit?
There were 4 that cost $100,000 in 1990 to build 4 suits. I told them I don't want to be running around in a pair of red tights. And they said, "Oh, you won't." And I sort of came to regret that. But the ones that didn't disintegrate, you know, because they couldn't clean them, I was sweating through them. I'd be in them for 10 minutes, and you could take, okay, that's an exaggeration, 20 minutes, and you take the glove off and empty it of water. So they started crumbling after about the third episode. You know, they're constantly doing repair work. They would hang them up in the trailer, spray them with Lysol because they couldn't clean them. They'd be wet in the morning when I put them back on, or if we started an episode at 3 a.m. one Saturday morning. I mean, it was a crazy show to shoot. The last I heard was that half of one of the suits was in a Planet Hollywood in Orlando. And I'm like, just the thought of that being close to people's food kind of. I hope it's hermetically sealed. Oh, I know where the ears to the last suit I wore are. We were down in southeast Los Angeles, where we shot a lot because they wanted a certain architecture. And we did the last shot at 5 in the morning, and I ripped the ears off and threw them in the air. Well, Mark Hamill almost lost his mind. He had a comic book shop up in Vancouver. He was crawling over, it was like garbage cans and over wires. He was like, don't let him get away, don't let. So I'm pretty sure Mark has at least one of the ears, wings. Trickster, yeah, he came on and played 2 episodes of the Trickster. Yeah, no, we were after. Yeah, he went on, they said his Riddler, he went on to voice the Riddler, which is kind of, he built on the Trickster that he did for us. Thanks for your question.
As far as like the scripts for each show, do you see several scripts ahead of time, or are you just privy to like the shooting script? Do you have an idea of where your character's going to be for the rest of the season, seasons to come? Because obviously, at least from the ratings, it seems like this is going to probably be a long run. Yeah. I was alarmed, actually, at the beginning at how quickly they were expanding. But, you know, when we only had an order for 13, and I was like, wow, they're really kind of shooting it up front. And Andrew Kreisberg was like, we may not get past 13, but we're going to make the best 13 episodes you've ever seen. And by God, they have. And we get our scripts, the actual scripts, maybe 2 weeks before we do them. When I first knew that I was going to be doing it, I moved back to New York, as I said, and Jeff Johns came and met me for drinks at the Essex House in New York City, and he spun out some ideas for the character. You know, that of course, I knew I'd be in prison, you know, that Barry's the only one that believed me, but that, you know, the event, they're going to find out there are other metahumans. There's a proposed storyline that he breaks me out, but I'm a drag on him because I'm not fast. So I decide to go back in. Don't tell anybody that I said. What am I thinking? But you know what? You know what happens is they pay very close attention to what you guys react to. You know, they're combing social media constantly. They have people who are hired to do that, to look for comments. And not just on the CW links. They're just, you know, when the shows are on, they're looking for what's working. What are people responding to? What are they not? And the other day, Grant, I just read, somebody called it my attention. Grant was giving an interview with Andrew Kreisberg, executive producer, showrunner. And they said, do you know who the man in the yellow suit is? And Grant said, yes, because we all think we know. And Andrew Kreisberg turned to him and said, no, you don't. So none of us are safe. We don't know who that's going to be. But we know that we see it next week. We're so excited for you guys to see that episode next Tuesday. It's our mid-season. They're calling it our mid-season finale. We have an order for 23 now. It's episode 9 on Tuesday, but it's our quote mid-season finale. It's a killer. And if you don't believe that, ask the stuntmen. That they put in the hockey arena in Vancouver on wires and yanked them back and forth. You know, those guys are crazy. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I really enjoyed your work on Teen Wolf.
Oh, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. How'd you get the role, and how'd you interact with cast and everything?
It was that was a straight offer. You know, I had played, a couple of years before, I played a maniac on, I'd come back to daytime after 18 years, and to close out One Life to Live, had played this very abusive. On the page, it was just so dark. I usually, when I try, I have 2 Emmys, both for playing, one for playing a psychotic rapist, and one for playing a woman abusing tennis pro. And you try to find the hurt and the wound, because you have to fall in love with a part of your character, or you can't play him. I looked at Eddie Ford on One Life to Live. Only thing I can do is just run straight at this and do a Jerry Springer. Make up lines, let me do anything. I think if I had said, okay, at the end of this line, I want to set the couch on fire, they would have all reached for their lighters, you know. I had total freedom, but that was a sick, sick part. And maybe they knew that I could go there because I could hardly watch that scene. At the point at which I'm holding the glass and I'm saying, well, I've got to find some way to punish you. Why don't you do the dishes and clean up the kitchen? Take a drink and say, and I do mean spotless. And I kind of tossed the glass. It wasn't written that way, but just kind of tossed it when it crashed. See what I'm saying?
Well, even though it was a bad turkey, you did very well with it.
And I laugh and I go, ooh, back in the box. Back in the box. I can't even watch it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I tell people I specialize in superheroes and psychopaths. There was another hand, sir.
So what advice did you give Grant about playing the Flash?
I avoid giving advice. They asked me that on Dawson's Creek because I was kind of a veteran coming in there. They said, do you give advice to the young actors? I said, oh God, I hope not. I said, if I tried to, somebody shoves a mic in my mouth because that would be insufferable. We have talked about a couple things, about mainly how to protect yourself when you're doing, because basically you're doing a primetime show, which is hard enough. You're doing an action primetime show, which is hard enough. And you're basically playing two parts. Mm-hmm. You're either, I called him the Creature, the Flash, or Barry Allen. So you're playing two parts. Then you add all the special stuff. As I said, nobody wants to hear anybody whine about working in the suit. You know, there's a lot of good out of it. Yes, it's hard, but it does present its own. We're like a little fraternity of people who know what that's like. So, you know, I felt like it was my son. You know, first of all, we're both from Norfolk, Virginia. He was born on the 18th of January. I was born on the 22nd, and he was born the year I was doing The Flash. So it's kind of, you know, I feel like, you know, but I'm watching him. He's in the suit. And he's up against the wall like this, and sweat's pouring out his face. And I'm like, man, go to your cooling tent. You got to save. You're not going to make it through the season. But I knew when I saw him on Arrow, after I found out he'd be playing his dad, that we worked pretty much the same way. And that's, you know, there's a book called No Acting, Please. And I just saw that he's so sincere in his work. And I happened to see the episode where he was explaining to Oliver and the people there what really happened and why he was really there and his dad and what happened. I thought, well, this guy's just completely sincere. He's completely honest. But I didn't have a clue. When we started working together, and I could see that he could. The fact that he's 10 years younger than I was when I played Barry allows him to play. I think one thing, correct me if I'm wrong, that we like about Barry Allen is he's kind of a goofy guy. You know? Well, the fact that he's 24 allows him to play that even more because there's this cultish sort of thing about it. You know, then he can snap into analyzing the footprint, and then he can come into the prison and break your heart in a scene with Dad. And you know what's interesting also, and I was talking to somebody else, I said, it's very interesting, if you watch Grant, he has two father figures on the show. One is Jesse L. Martin and one is me. I raised him from 0 to 10, and then Joe West took him from 10 into adulthood. We have similar scenes, and Grant plays them completely different. Grant's very emotional in ours, as a child would be. He comes to me as a child, which makes sense, because that's how we related, you know. And he, even in the emotional scenes with Joe, he's much more dealing with Joe, because Joe brought him into manhood. That's a smart actor. That's somebody who takes his craft very seriously, so I couldn't be more delighted with him. I don't know if you can tell that, but anybody else? Yes? Do I like going to conventions? I wouldn't do it if I didn't. And not just for the money. I mean, let's be honest, that's nice. But what I enjoy, that's why I asked for a wireless mic. I enjoy the interaction with you guys. I enjoy the feedback. It's not a one-way process. You know, I've done a lot of theater. and you get an immediate reaction. I've been on Broadway a couple of times, and you get the audience reaction. You don't have to wait for it. Well, we're in a studio. We're all very inbred. Yeah, we can go around patting each other on the back, but what does that mean? You know, we like what we're doing, you know, but it's good to come in, and even to hear the things, the criticisms. You know, one person said to me, and I don't like calling you guys fans, that's just a quirk I have, because I sort of feel like fans are, you know, created to move air. I call you guys the audience. And one guy said, you know, it's a shame that he loves the show, but he said, every family story, it seems nowadays, has to be tragic. And I said, I hear you. I really hear you on that. So I enjoy picking up the comments and what people say. I don't know where we're going to go. And they're changing it, as I said, as we speak. You guys have an enormous effect on letting them know what you're gravitating towards. So to answer your question, I enjoy it. They're exhausting. You know, I'm sure it's exhausting for you guys. You got made up, you know, I'm sure that's not cool. You got a wig on. 40% of your body heat is not escaping through your head. I hate to tell you. But yes, I do. I do enjoy it. Yes?
What was it like during like the early years of your acting career?
The early years of my acting, I started, first of all, as a music major at Indiana University in Bloomington,
What?
Indiana.
What was your major instrument?
Voice. I
Yeah!
was a voice performance I studied with Walter Castle and Gene Dice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then before that, I had studied with some students at Harvard Hartshop. But yeah, I did that, and then I switched to theater, and then I dropped out. I moved to New York. So I'm a college dropout. And I started waiting tables. I waited tables for 3 years. I did showcases for no money. You know, I say now, the scariest job on the planet that I've ever experienced, well, no, because I had like 5 minutes as a short order cook when I was 18, and that just freaked me out. I just couldn't cope, you know, so hard. Waiting tables, I have waiter nightmares. All the food's coming up to the kitchen, I don't know what table it goes to. You know, 4 cappuccinos, which take so much time, you know, whatever it is. And so I did that, and then I got industrial films. Like I got an Army training film where we shot it in Leavenworth, at the maximum security prison. And they had to tape actor all over me because, you know, I didn't want to not be heard from again. So, and then I did Showtime's first original movie, I'm a Relic. It was called The Dirtiest Show in Town. They did 3 movies, Best of Off-Broadway, Me and My Girl, The Passion of Dracula, and Tom Ian's The Dirtiest Show in Town. And I did the Dirtiest Show in Town. The month after that, I got Guiding Light. There was a fan of Guiding Light who was relentless in her objection to my playing Kelly Nelson because I had been in the Dirtiest Show in Town. But what are you going to do? Which was interesting because people at the beginning began to say, Grant, he's too this, he's too young, he played a villain on Glee. I said, no, wait a minute. When I came to Flash, I was carrying 2 Emmys, both for Psychopaths, so he's actually continuing a tradition. You know, even before I knew I would be involved, I tried to jump in because how long have we waited for another Flash? How many times has it fallen in and out of development? You know, and finally we had it. So, no, everything's not going to be truthful. But you've got 4 producers who love the character, love this medium, and are one of us. You know, so they're going to give it all the love and attention and respect that that you guys deserve as our audience. Anybody else? Yes.
How do you feel about the studios like not casting Grant as the Flash in the Flash?
You know, it's funny that you answer that because Stephen Amell, as you probably know, was very outspoken. And Stephen, I have to say, is a real leader. When I was when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, 180,000 people took over the town this year. You know, this last Comic-Con, we had a panel with Constantine and God, Bowden, and Flash. Who am I leaving out?
Arrow.
Yeah, Arrow. Obviously, I'm talking about Stephen. And It was 24 years ago, guys, give me a break. But anyway, old guy up here. But I was amazed at what a leader he was. He really was the spokesperson for all of the shows. And it's a role he comes to, a leadership role. So when I had seen that he was speaking up for Grant, I also think there was, he wanted to be involved in one of the movies. And he tells the story himself. He lobbied for a part, and they said, "You're a TV actor." Pissed him off. People in our business, in any business, let's face it, we're not special in any business, so not always the most tactful. But, I don't know that Grant wants to do it. See, I don't know how I feel about it until I talk to Grant about it. Because, I support him in whatever he wants to do. By the third episode, I walked up to him and I said, "Is it getting real yet?" He's like, "Oh my God, I'm waking up at 5 in the morning going, what have I done?" I said, "It's okay, you'll get through that wall. You'll break through that wall and hit another one. Just keep going." But I don't know. I don't know. I know that that's their philosophy. For whatever reason, they want to keep the TV universes and the film universes separate. But they got 4 years. It's not till 2018. So I know they've announced The Flash, but a lot can happen in 3 years, and a lot of it is driven by you guys. So, if you don't like that, speak up. If you do like that they're keeping it separate, speak up. I'd say just speak up. I can't imagine. Also the interesting thing, people were saying, "Well, he's too young, he's not old enough." I said, "Well, support the show, give us a few seasons, and he will." Because we'll see him change physically right before our eyes. He's 24 years old, 24 to 28, we're going to see a lot of him. We're going to see him grow into that, which I think is kind of cool, quite frankly. Yeah, I'd support him in whatever he wanted to do. I have a feeling a couple years as a superhero, knock on wood, if we last that long, he's going to be ready to move on. Because he's immensely talented. It's so funny, we've all been on Broadway. Grant has not been on Broadway yet, but he's done a lot of theater. And, I'll walk in on set, and there'll be Jesse L. Martin, who also, of course, does musicals and taps, and they're over there learning a tap routine. I can't tap. And they go, no, like this. And I'm like, Flash the musical. I can see it coming. 3rd season. We're going to have a musical episode. It'll be kind of weird. I wonder what Henry sings like.
Sing along in the theater, like that one, what was that, Frozen? They had sing-along episodes where they were singing in the theater. Are they going to be doing that for Flash?
Oh, God, yeah, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? If they really have the talent for it, with a little bouncing ball. Now, that was Mitch Miller. You guys don't remember that. Anybody else? Yes.
So do you have a clue where in your season of Flash, if it had continued, where it was going to go, or do you have an idea of where you would want it to have gone?
I heard that we were going to do Justice League to open 2nd season.
Okay.
And they had big plans, and I was at the Tonys the next year, because I went to do Dancing at Lunasook by Brian Friel, a wonderful play, drama on Broadway. Took over from the Irish cast, who could only play it for 4 months. And I went to the Tonys. It won the Tony as Best Play that year. And Howard Stringer from corporate CBS was there. And he came up to me and introduced himself and apologized for how badly. He said, we all loved it. It was a critical hit. It was such a struggle by the end, but I had forgotten. I was just going in and through some boxes in my parents' home in Atlanta, going through some old clippings, and I came upon one that said, "Flash lifts CBS to strong ratings Thursday night." I'm like, that's right. We did premiere to strong ratings. And then we were preempted for baseball. And then we were back on for it. And then we were preempted for the first Gulf War. And then we were back on. And then Daddy Bush threw up at a state dinner in Japan. We were preempted again. And then they moved our night. Then they moved us to the half hour. And when comic book fans were calling in saying, "We can't find you," I began to get fan mail. "We can't find you." If your core audience can't find you, it's just a matter of time. Although I must say, it's the hardest thing I've ever done. From the third week in August to the second week in May, with 4 days off for Christmas, and that was it. You know, like I told you, we finished one episode at 2 in the morning on a Saturday and started a new episode at 3. The director walked out the back and I said, "Are you people crazy?" You know, so it's kind of good news, bad news. I thought, well, maybe I just added a couple years back onto my life. But you hate when you pour yourself into it. And I have to say the producers have done everything, gone out of their way to reflect as much respect and admiration for our effort. To me, I felt, because they were, as I said, they were young and they were all fans of the show. I felt from the minute I walked onto that set. David Nutter, I don't even know if I'll be able to tell this, but at the end we shot Nora's death. The thing's flying apart. Me running in, telling Barry to run. That was the last thing I shot in the pilot. At the end of it, David Nutter called people around. He put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "None of us would be here today if it weren't for this guy proving that it could be done so well on TV." Well, I just about lost it. I mean, when you're working with people who feel that way, you're going to give 120%, you know. I'd do anything for those guys. And they, in turn, have sort of gifted me with the opportunity to revisit something that ended too soon and sort of have healing around an old wound, so to speak. Not to get too... I did live in California for 23 years. Stop me. Yes, sir. Over here, Cindy. Did you have your hand up?
I did. Is the Flash your favorite superhero, or is there any other superhero that you enjoy more than the Flash?
You know, I have to say, I didn't read comic books when I grew up. When they said, talk to me about playing the Flash, and I went, you mean Flash Gordon? I now take great offense at that when I say, no, the Flash. If anybody asks me that question. So I'd have to say that the one I know most about is Flash. It certainly has been with me a long time. Got to voice Professor Zoom in Batman the Brave and the Bold, a Flash-centered episode, which I thought was way cool. And so I played myself, I played my own worst enemy, and now I'm playing my father. So I don't know. If it weren't for the Flash franchise, my career would be, my resume would be considerably shorter, I guess. Anybody? Yes?
So what's your favorite memory?
From the old version? God, that's so hard to say. It's so hard to say. Because I don't remember so much of it. I mean, literally, I'll say, a friend will want to watch it, will pop it in, and I'll go, I don't remember that. I don't remember doing that. It was such a runaway train. I mean, the alarm would go off, I wouldn't know if it was 6 a.m. or 6 p.m., you know what I mean? I drive to the lot and we'd be on location, you know? I mean, I was constantly in a perpetual haze because I was working between 55 and 85 hours a week. Our crew we were always, most expensive show on television at that time, and always over our budget. So a favorite memory, I have to say the favorite memory at the beginning, because I had done daytime and I had done Broadway, and I'd only done one episode of a primetime show. And there was Burbank Studios, which they had just renamed Warner Brothers, so they had the water tower, the freshly painted Warner Brothers studio logo. And I remember the first day going to work and driving over Barham Boulevard and seeing that water tower and knowing that I was going to my parking space on the back lot at Warner Brothers friggin' studio. You know what I mean? And we had 2 sound stages. In our sets, we had a third of the back lot. And it was such an incredible experience. You know, it really was. It really was. And like I said, everyone was working so hard, and we felt that what we were doing was good. You know, so that's always fun. Yes, sir.
What was it like working as a closer?
The closer was awesome. You know, Kevin Bacon, you're all now 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon, by the way, because Kevin Bacon was my dressing room mate on Guiding Light in 1980. He played Tim and I played Kelly. We were both fighting over Morgan. But anyway, that's another story. What was your question?
Just what was it like working on
Oh, the closer.
with
Yeah, yeah, it was great. I liked that character, and what I liked about it was he had guilty written all over him. I mean, the director, we had I can't remember her name right now. It was a female director, and she said, "I want you to do the hotel scene in your bathrobe." I said, "God, that's so right." You know, just this guy was just, you know, and I got to put a spin on the situation. I got to play guilty and then not be at the end of it. So that was fun. Now, Kira, I didn't get to know very well because she was, of course, if you're the lead in a crime drama or an action series, you're just, you know, working as hard, you're running as fast as you can go. Kevin had actually directed the episode before mine. That would have been tricky if he had directed, what was it called? What was that episode called?
I can handle it.
Okay, we'll get back to you on that. Was it Sweet 16? No, it was something, Culture Shock. Culture Shock, I think. No, was that an episode of The Flash? I forget. It all begins to run together. Yes.
Talk about Dawson.
What do you want to know? That was a real interesting situation. I wasn't the original dad, as you probably know. I was off in Moab, Utah, in our town with the one stoplight. It was beautiful with David Carradine, Lee Majors, Michelle Green, Kathy Lee Crosby, and we were shooting The Lost Treasure of Dos Santos, and I hope you never have to see that. But when they cast Mitch and they did the pilot presentation, I got back to LA, they wanted to go in a different direction. And they sent me the pilot presentation, and I thought, wow, this is unlike anything on TV. People forget that we were the critically acclaimed Dawson's Creek for the first year or two. We were Editor's Choice. There was nothing that sounded like it. Instead of writing down to kids, we were writing up to kids. Glenn Close said, "Kids don't talk like that," and Kevin Williamson shot back, "Maybe not, but they'd like to." I mean, what a criticism to have leveled against you, that you're writing too, you know what I mean? You're writing up to your audience. But what was fun about that is these kids were all just at the beginning. They were kids at the beginning of their career. This new show, we were sequestered in Wilmington, North Carolina, so we were out of the bright lights of Hollywood. And we watched them go overnight from relative unknowns. Josh had done The Mighty Ducks, so he probably was the best known. James had worked with Edward Albee in a play, so that's not too shabby, but wasn't known. And we watched them go overnight to international stars. I remember when James, we were like his parents. When he came to me and Mary Margaret when he signed his first autograph. It was so cute. When Varsity Blues came out, he wanted Mary Margaret and I to go see it with him. And so we were serving Mom and Dad, but it was fun because it was sequestered, and it was really a golden moment. Then there were 500 copies. And, you know, it's hard to sustain the quality of the show. And then it kind of, you know, and then I was ready to leave by the time the kids were going to go to college because I saw the handwriting on the wall. I'd be standing in the background holding the new baby and waving. I was like, nah, I don't really want to do that. So, but it was great. It was great. Yeah, yeah.
Pivotal for a lot of that age group. Kind of made them think a little bit up from being just teenagers.
Exactly.
Kind of moving up.
Exactly.
It's nice that they actually wrote.
And I like that Kevin had us, he said, you will not be, if they're fans of 902 and Beverly Hills 90210, I apologize. He said, I promise you we will not turn you into 90210 parents. You will have independent, you will have subsidiary, but independent storylines that will reflect what the kids are going through. And I also like that Dawson and Mitch flipped roles, you know, that it was Dawson who was walking in on his mom and dad having sex, or, you know, he's going out for a date and Mitch says, have fun, play safe. He's like, oh God, Dad, is everything with sex with you, Dad? You know, it was fun the way they played with that. I thought it was a refreshing take on how we see a parent-child relationship on television. It was fun. Have I exhausted you all? Yes, sir.
You kept members of the original Flash cast?
Amanda Pays will be in episode 9 on Tuesday. And so I appeared at Dallas Comic Con in 2011 with Amanda. As I said, I just did a film that her husband's in, Censored Perception. And so we've talked. I saw her on the set, and she looks fantastic. And I'll be interested to see how that works. She's coming back as Tina McGee from Star Labs, a rival, setting her up to be a rival scientist to Harrison Wells. So we'll see where that goes, if that storyline has traction. Alex and I exchange tweets and messages. I'd love for Alex to come on the show. You know, I have absolutely no say-so on that. But who else? Yeah, that's about it.
And we have time for one more question or two.
Okay, yes.
What years were you on the Guiding Light?
I was on Guiding Light from, you would ask that. How many people weren't alive in 1980? Raise your hands. I was on Guiding Light from 1980 to 1984.
Did you know that was Roy Rogers' favorite soap opera?
You know who else? And this blew my mind when we got a fan letter from Betty Davis.
Wow.
I was like, you mean Fred Astaire? They tried to, he was very old at this point, but the head writer, Douglas Morley, he was a fan of the show. They wanted to get him in for Nola's Fantasies. They said just to have one shot of him going, what that would have been, but he wasn't working anymore. I'm saying, Betty Davis and Fred Astaire would recognize me? That was mind-blowing.
Yeah, Roy Rogers and Dale Evans, they leave the museum at 3 o'clock and go home and watch that.
Oh yeah, so did you work with them?
No, I know the family, but,
Family.
yeah.
Cool. Well, that's awesome. Yes, sir.
You think it's more the timing issue when the shows come out? Like now there's more superhero shows and more shows that have like more call or magic or something like that compared to 1990 when your show was kind of like there was nothing else really.
We were coming into a new sensibility, collective consciousness around superheroes and how they should be written for television. So we were sort of the vanguard of that, I'm proud to say, that we did not write down to the audience, that it's the only reason I was interested in doing it, that we would play the moments for real, that there would be humor, but it would be humor based on character, like I can't believe it was over so quickly, or, whatever it is, the eating thing, but it's totally different. It's like I said, I may have said this to you outside, I can demonstrate the difference in Comic-Con in the intervening years. When I went in 1990, it was a 4-hour event. I signed a few autographs and left. This year, 180,000 fans, I use that word, 180,000 people took over the town. And we previewed our pilot for 7,000 people in Hall H, and we were oversold. Jesse Martin, as I said, walked in, he's like, oh my God, we haven't even been on the air yet, and we're getting all this love. This is blowing my mind, So this Flash had an audience, more mainstream audience, to come into, and I like to think that maybe we had a little bit to do with that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And with that, I was stated, Commissioner might have been too afraid to ask him in front of